Hey, I'll be here. Doing a quick update on the future badge. This was not one of the scheduled streams, and it probably won't last that long, but made a lot of progress over the weekend, so I thought I'd do a quick update now so that we can jump into things on Thursday night. So, as you can see, we have artwork is updated, and this is because I really want to get a prototype board ordered. And the only way that I'm going to be able to do that, I realized, is if I can actually figure out where to lay out all the components and edge cuts and things like that. So, right now, this is what the shape of the badge is tentatively going to look like. I was thinking when I put this together, like a ticket stub for going to the movies. Like you're going to see a movie and it's got that shape. Um, the actual dimensions I'm still working out. I think the two different sizes I'm playing with are 120 millimeters end to end and 70 millimeters top to bottom. And that would be for those that want inches, 4.7 inches across by 2.76 inches up and down. That may not be enough room for all the stuff I want to put on here and to have things shine through. So the other thing that I'm looking at is 160 millimeters by 94. So significantly larger, a little over 6 inches wide and like 3.5 inches tall. That might be too big, so it might be something in between those. But basically, the um, the reason that I want it to size it is because we're going to have all of these voids that are going to shine the LEDs through the voids. So this will be voids through the PCB because this is going to be two PCBs, one in front and one in back. So all the electronics will go on the back. So before I get into details, let's zoom in on some of the art and what I've been doing with that. So we have, I added the clock tower, nice shadowed clock tower effect. I made the flames wider so that I can start doing the solder void inside the flames for the tires. Then the lightning effect, when I drew it by hand, it looked kind of squiggly and not very lightning-y, so I'm actually sharpening up a lot of those lines to make them more lightning-like and widening some of the gaps because those are going to be solder voids as well for the LEDs. Then I put in the panel, the time traveling panel, and I thought a cool thing would be to play with the dates. So we have the last time departed. That is the date of DEF CON 1. And then the present date, that will be the date of DEF CON 31. And then a future date in the year 3000, a little nod to my 3000 society. And of course, the hours are leet, because we're all leet. So, and then the reason I did this was to try to figure out layout of the LEDs. So I put a layer on here that just kind of went over the LEDs. Now initially, I was going to have the NeoPixels, 2 for the flames and 2 for the lightning, but I think I've decided against that. So these green octagon things, those are the NeoPixels. Then we have the orange colored ones. These are the red and yellow dual color LEDs. So with this, that'll make a good flame effect. Then for the lightning, we have these yellow ones are actually the bright white LEDs that'll flash for lightning. And then we have the blue ones here that'll light up. And where do I need to send some money? So to answer the question, we are supposed to be doing either a Kickstarter or some other crowdfunding campaign sometime in the next 2 weeks. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to get the prototype done. That way we would have pretty pictures of stuff for crowdfunding. Because that's what we're going to do this year is we're going to do crowdfunding to actually get the money in. and then do distribution in Vegas and also locally in the DFW area prior to the con. So this way, we're not having to deal with shipping, but we can still get a lot of the funding ahead of time, so we're not having to front all the money to put all this together. So yeah, I would expect that in the next week to 10 days, we'll call it, to have an announcement for the crowdfunding campaign. We're still putting that together, and I think that's another reason I wanted to do this stream tonight, because Thursday night stream, we're going to try to focus on the crowdfunding and get that going so we can figure out which service we want to use and how we want to deal with it. But yeah, good question. So yes, you'll be able to send money soon. So one of the things, back to the LEDs, one of the things that I was going to do is put 2 NeoPixels in here, but I thought a better use for that, rather than have this text, just black text sitting on the top, or whatever color we use for the silk, without it lighting up. Instead, what I'm going to do is do a solder void all behind, like a shadow effect behind the wording. And then I'm going to put the 2 NeoPixels back here to light that up from behind. So it'll be like the shadow of the words are all lit up from behind. So I think that'll be a cool effect, and that'll be a better use of the NeoPixels, because we'll do all kinds of cool colors there. Where the lightning, it's really just going to be blue and white. It doesn't need to be anything else. So, and for the lightning, I also think I might add 1 or 2 more LEDs in there, specifically blue ones. I think the 2 white ones, being that they're extremely bright white and they're only going to flash on and off, 2 is probably enough for that, to give it that flash effect. But for the blue, there's a lot more area I want to cover with blue, so I might add 2 more blue LEDs in. And that leads me to my issue here, in that we have used just about all of the pins that we can use on the ESP32. We have 4 pins up here that, or I'm sorry, 5 pins up here that we can't touch because they're input only. These 2, if we wire things up and it senses a signal, the thing won't boot. This one is a possibility, but it's also tied to the LED that's on board. And then this one was another one that it could cause problems with boot. So rather than mess with another pin, I'm thinking we're just going to dual on some of these guys, to where some of these blues we'll just double up and run 2 LEDs off of 1 resistor, or 1, not resistor, 1 GPIO pin. So we'll have them both come in off the same GPIO pin. So 2 here, 2 there, and then maybe have 2 of them that are singles. And I think that'll also, it'll give us more lighting, and it won't cause any power issues if we're just throwing a couple more on there. But if I don't want to do 4 more, and if we have these 2 are doubled up and these 2 are not, I think the thought process is the ones that are not are actually going to run a little brighter than the ones that are doubled up. And so that'll give it a cool little physical effect to adjust brightness on them, to make them not all the same brightness all the time. We still have the option of doing PWM on them, but this might just do what we need it to do and have them just lit or not lit at whatever levels they're at. So that is the plan for that, which means I need to modify this schematic to get 2 more LEDs in there, 2 more blue ones. And I did the count on the LEDs that I bought from China already, and we have enough that we can do 6 per badge, so should be perfect. So that means we're almost ready to lay out the traces on the PCB. And one of the first things that I do when I go to lay out traces on the PCB is I make sure all the footprints are good and the way I want them. And so that's the first thing I did here, was just make sure I edited all the footprints. So we have our nice ESP footprint here. Let me pull this over here so my face is not blocking the screen. Yeah, so we have this nice ESP footprint that I put together. And I tried to idiot proof it with the silk screen. That way people will know the USB end is here. This is the end with the antenna. It goes this direction. And then for the LEDs, especially these NeoPixels, one thing I found that was a complaint from people was they couldn't figure out which direction they went easily, because unlike a regular LED that just has 2 pins, this has 4 pins. So I did this nice silkscreen pin layout so you can tell which pins go in which holes on the LED, and that'll be silk screened on there, so it'll be nice, easy to put together. Then we have, what's the other one? The regular LEDs. Once again, well, this is the two color. I'm sorry, the two color. Once again, it has 3 pins, so I put together the silk on which pins are going in which holes. Question about 3D printing? No, I do not ever want to 3D print parts for a badge again. That was so much work. Oh my God. So yeah, there will not be any 3D printed parts for this badge. Then this one, this is the regular LEDs. And I just, to keep with what I was doing with the other ones, I put the 2 pins there, and which one's the long pin, which one's the short pin. So yeah, all the silk is done. We have our battery connector and our switch. Now, one thing I was thinking of with the battery, because for those that haven't seen the previous badge diaries that we've been doing, we decided to go with a 9-volt battery, which is straying away from the AAAs or AA's I've used in the past. One of the main reasons we decided to do that is because this dev board that we're going to use, the voltage in can take a wide range. It can take anything from, I think, like 3 volts all the way up to 18 volts. So I can put a 9-volt battery on that, and it's going to voltage it down to the 3.3 volt that the actual ESP chip needs. And that'll make that 9-volt last longer, because it's when you step down the voltage, it's using less amperage. So that'll make it last a little longer, and it's a single battery, and we don't need to deal with all these battery boxes and battery connector things. So the idea, and I don't think I have this drawn up anywhere, at least not well, but the idea is on the back PCB, because there's going to be 2 PCBs. On the rear PCB, because these PCBs are going together with header pins that look like that, it's not quite enough of a gap that the 9-volt can stick in between the 2 boards without it like not closing. So on the back PCB, I'm going to cut out a hole that is the size of the 9-volt battery. So that way the 9-volt will be sticking out a little bit, but will go in against the front PCB. Then on that back PCB, in addition to the hole for the 9-volt, it's going to have little notches, like little hooks that are in the sides of that are perfectly sized out for a number 8 sized rubber band. And so we can put the 9-volt battery in there with the normal little battery clip. Do I have one here? No, I don't. But you know, the normal 9-volt battery clip that has like 2 wires coming off of it, we'll have that as our battery connector. The wires will solder into the board. The battery clip will go on the battery. The battery just sits inside of the 2 PCBs, and it's held in place by a rubber band that connects on the little loops that are on the PCB. So that's something I'm going to have to do a lot of measuring on, and get those edge cuts right to allow for a little rubber band to be my hook in there. But I think that's going to work out great, because then we're just dealing with a single 9-volt battery and a very cheap and easy to put on there battery connector. So, and all of the components, well, the majority of the components are going on the back PCB facing the inside. So it's going to face the front PCB. So on the back of the back PCB, there really shouldn't be anything except that 9 volt with the rubber band sticking out. And then the back PCB will also have the holes for the lanyard to clip in, and we're going to do one of those lanyards that has 2 connectors, one for each side, especially since it's a wide badge. That's an important thing to note. But yeah, the other interesting thing that I was going to do, rather than try to deal with printing 2 different PCBs as 2 separate runs, I'm going to put it all together as one single breakaway PCB using something that I've read of before and I've seen other people use, but I haven't done it, and that's called mouse bites. So if we put mouse bites on the actual bottom of the top PCB and the top of the bottom PCB, we can put them together in such a way that it's panelized basically, and it's one PCB that will go to manufacturing, even though we're going to break it apart and make it 2. And so that's another reason that the sizing of this becomes important, because there are limitations on how large a single PCB can be for printing. And I think even at my larger size that I was considering, I'm within those tolerances. So we should be good to do that. And so that'll be a really cool thing to do. Let me see if I can find, here it is. Yes. Manual panelization of PCBs with tabs and mouse bites. And so yeah, basically the mouse bites are these little footprints here. And so this is an actual solid piece of PCB that has drill holes. Now they're not plated, so they're not like plated through holes that you would use for soldering. They're just literally drill holes. That way you can break them apart. It'll just break on that, and it might leave a little rough edge there, but if we do a couple of these in different places, I think that would be a perfect solution, because then we can get these 2 badges. Come back to this view. Yeah, so if you imagine 2 that are this size, and then we can do the breakaways like on the bottom of this guy, which will be the top of the other guy, or if I flip that around, it could be the bottom of the other guy too. Keep the rough edges all on the bottom. Then the second PCB down here would have all the component connectors, and then we're going to put the through holes on the sides and the top and the bottom for connecting the 2 together, because the DeLorean will have all of the capacitive touch sensitive stuff. And so that will be, not only are we using the through holes to hold the 2 PCBs together, but the through holes are going to transmit this capacitive touch to the board, to the other board where the ESP is. And that way when we touch it, it'll do different things. Haven't figured out what it's going to do yet, but it'll do different things. So that is the basics of what we got planned so far. A lot more work needs to be done on this artwork over the next couple of days. That way I can actually export this from Illustrator and import it into KiCad. And then we'll add those LEDs there, and then we'll start doing the layouts. And the layouts and tracing should be fun, because depending upon what size I go with, I mean, a 9-volt battery is a couple inches. Let's see. If we're talking about the board that's only like 2.76 inches tall, well, yeah, a 9-volt battery with its connector is 2 inches tall. So that's like the whole length of the whole up down of the badge, which I think the ESP is about the same. Yeah, it's about 2 inches tall as well. So yeah, we have 2 major things. The dev board, since we're using a dev board, not just an MCU, and the 9-volt battery are both pretty long components. And I got to try to fit them in here amongst all these LEDs. So that's why I may end up going a little bit bigger to allow for the sizing of throw a 9-volt battery here where there's no LEDs in the middle. Maybe put the ESP dev board off to the side here. That way there's no LEDs in the way. But yeah, I got to work out those logistics when we start doing the layout. But we're getting close, very close. I think the artwork has really driven the design, as it should be, in my opinion. And this should be ready to go to prototyping sometime next week. But hopefully this Thursday, on the Thursday stream, we'll get through the Kickstarter stuff, and then we can go over what more has been done here. I hope to have the artwork finalized by then and have the schematic updated and pushed out with the PCB stuff at least started. So should be good. One thing I've been wrestling with is on the actual GitHub for this, because right now it's a private GitHub for just the badge team. But I know a lot of people have shown interest in wanting to see the art and the code other than on this stream. So I'm wondering when the best timing is to actually release that to the public. I was thinking about when we launch the Kickstarter or whatever crowdfunding we use. But then I'm like, well, once it's at that point and we make it public, there's nothing to prevent someone from just manufacturing these on their own and beating me to the punch at DEF CON. So it's a real worry. And so I'm thinking about how best to handle that. But I do think I want to get the GitHub public before DEF CON. I'm not going to wait until DEF CON to release it. I think I just might wait a little closer to DEF CON to where it would be very difficult for someone to be able to beat me to the punch. So, but that is basically it for this update. This was just a quick update just because we got a lot done. Not too much more to go over tonight, other than I did get a whole bunch more parts in, so I'm happy about that. I don't know if you guys have ever seen what 100 ESP32s look like, but there's 50 and there's another bag just like it with 50 more, all nicely individual wrapped too. I wish they had used the reclosable wrappings though, because those I'm gonna have to rip them open. But yeah, so got ESPs in, which is cool, and the ones that I got from China are a little bit different than the ones that I bought off Amazon. Nothing major, no code changes needed or anything, but these are USB-C. So that was the something that I've been wanting to do for a while, is to get away from the USB micro and go with a USB-C connector. And because they're USB-C, that means it's a different USB driver, which I didn't have installed. So I had to install the USB driver for that chip. But once I got that done, worked like a charm. So that is it. All right, guys, it is late. Thank you for tuning in to this very quick last-minute unannounced stream. But yeah, progress is being made on the future badge, and we will be doing a stream in 2 days on Thursday. So if you're interested to see more, come visit us on the Thursday stream as well. And this will go up to YouTube along with all of my other past streams. So thanks, everyone, and have a great night. Talk to y'all later.